Well, digital world. Two reviews is in as many weeks. How do you like that? I know I certainly do. We went from a 5 month drought to plentiful movies everywhere at the cinema. Well, not plenty. After this, I'm sure I will not see another movie for the next few weeks or so. But nevertheless, it's review time. Back in the old days where I'd pull out a special episode towards the end of the week to review a movie. Haven't done it for a while, very excited. But here we are again today to talk about a movie which, I don't know, I hope that I have enough to talk about here. There's certainly a lot about the stigma for this movie and the history of it and everything. But in terms of the movie itself, I don't know. As you know, Spliced In Later is all about the positivity, and very rarely do I say a movie is bad or I didn't enjoy it. And that certainly won't be the case today. I don't think it ever will be the case. But it is not your standard, straightforward, I loved it, I'm going to gush about it, go and see it. Today we are talking about the much hyped, the mysterious, the unobtainable, the somehow finally here X-Men Marvel movie, The New Mutants. Yes, The New Mutants. I don't know where you are in the world, I don't know how you can claim this if you do, but surely everybody has at least heard of this movie in some way or another. They've seen a poster for it in the movie theater saying it was coming out in 2017, 2018, 2019. You've seen Maisie Williams talking about it because everybody loves Arya from Game of Thrones and Maisie Williams is in this film. You've seen it bouncing around release date to release date with the acquisition of Disney buying Fox. Who knew when it was coming out? Would it be in the theaters? Would it be in streaming services? Well, somehow it's here. I still can't quite believe it. Let me tell you, when the movie theater turned the lights off and the movie started, there was a delay between the last ad and the logo coming up at the start of the film. I thought for sure that at the very last second, a big gotcha would just appear on the screen. The lights would go up, someone would laugh, and we'd go home. But no, we saw the movie, and what do we think about it? Alright, bit of history for you. If you're unfamiliar with the New Mutants, as I like to do with my reviews, I like to give you a bit of a backdrop to the movie itself, to give you a little synopsis of the movie, in most cases, unlike my Tenet review where I gave you absolutely nothing, but just said it was good. But it deserves recognition, at least the X-Men movies. If you go all the way back to 2000, the movie X-Men came out, and apart from Blade, which came out a couple years before it, X-Men really has the reputation of kicking off what I like to call, and what I'm sure most people call, the modern superhero Marvel film golden age of films, which is still going on now. It showed that the comic book characters adapted from Marvel could be made into entertaining, successful blockbuster movies with well-known actors in the role of the comic book characters. X-Men itself spawned its own successful franchise, but from X-Men onwards, I believe without it, we wouldn't have got the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, the Fantastic Four movies, the Eric Bana Hulk, Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider, a couple of Punishers, and then of course eventually evolving into what we are very familiar with today as the Marvel Cinematic Universe of Iron Man, Thor, Captain America, and that very much continuous series, universe, world that I myself love, and I'm sure most of you do too. But it was really X-Men that got the ball rolling. And unlike the other films that followed it in that era before the MCU, the Sam Raimi Spider-Mans, the Hulks, the Punishers, X-Men has endured. It has somehow made movie after movie after movie that has gone from 2000 to 2003, 2006, 2009, 2011, 2013, 14, 16, 17, and then now 2020. It's absolutely impressive that it's still going on. There's been all sorts of actors in the role. The series has been rebooted multiple times. There's been all sorts of spin-offs. It's quite impressive, so it should get the recognition for that. Now, the X-Men films in themselves are notorious for an inconsistent level of quality, at least in this reviewer's opinion. They've made fantastic movies, 10 out of 10 absolute impressive superhero films, if not just great films in general, a number of times. X2, X-Men Days of Future Past, Logan, Deadpool, great films that have won multiple stuff at the box office. People have shown they can make quality characters, good stories, entertaining action. And then at the same time, when they've gone low, They've made some stuff which is not great, kind of mind-boggling, bit boring. X-Men Origins, Wolverine, Dark Phoenix, X-Men Apocalypse. It's very inconsistent. For every fantastic X-Men movie, there's a movie that is notorious for being bad, bland, all of that stuff. So it's a gamble. When you go and see an X-Men movie, you're not really sure what you're going to get. Are you going to get something as fantastic as Logan, or are you going to get some sort of gobshite that is Dark Phoenix? The New Mutants, that was the biggest question of all. For the New Mutants itself, it is not quite an X-Men movie, but it is set in the world of the X-Men with mutants. If you don't know, X-Men are people who are mutants, who have special powers. They all come together as a team led by Professor X, and they go off and they protect the world that hates and fears them. That's the thing about mutant superheroes. They're not loved and revered like Iron Man and Captain America. People are scared of them. People fear them. And the bad X-Men, the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants led by Magneto, they're very much just sort of trying to protect themselves, and also hatred towards humans. So you can see both sides there. It's not black and white like a lot of comic book stuff. So hats off to the creation of X-Men in the comics and Stan Lee, because it's another fantastic world that's been created. The New Mutants focuses on a separate group of young children who have nothing to do with the X-Men in any way. They're just discovering their powers, and it's them dealing with it, them coming to terms with what they are, and the location that they are in. They're all trapped in this house, this mansion, and things are going on. There's some spooky shit happening. No one can quite tell exactly what the focus is, but it is them learning to trust each other as a group, essentially, to rely on each other, because they can't rely on everybody else. And then, I don't know how the comics go. I believe the New Mutants is the name of the team that they form, but it's more of a darker, edgier, more violent sort of world than we're used to with the X-Men. It's not superheroes saving the world. It's just people, damaged people that are just trying to make their way in life. And that's all the New Mutants really is. It is a haunted house story, essentially. It is these characters trapped together, dealing with spooky stuff, trying to uncover the mystery of what's going on and survive until the end of the movie. Now, the New Mutants has a notorious production history. Its first trailer I saw was back in 2017, and the trailer was very jump scary. It was very, this is not your standard superhero movie. We're going for the horror stuff. I will say a lot of the trailer had a lot of jump scares, which did not end up in the final cut of this movie. But people saw that trailer and sort of went, okay, cool. Edgy stuff, yeah, we can get behind it. And then out of the blue, it suddenly was delayed for 2 years. The reasons why are still debated to this day. Some people said that because of the response to the horror element of the movie was so strong that they wanted to reshoot it to make it more scary. Other people said that they wanted to try and tweak it so it wasn't too scary, so that anybody could access this film. It wasn't registered just for the horror crazy people out there. Then, as we got closer to the actual release of the New Mutants, Disney bought Fox, and then the whole question of how the New Mutants fits into Disney image became a thing, because as great as Disney is with the variety of content that it has not really embraced the not kid family friendly of the products that they have. You wouldn't see Disney releasing a Friday the 13th movie, that sort of thing. So how was Disney going to release the New Mutants? Because it had been made. It was ready to go. People had put work and effort and money into it. So they couldn't just put it away on a shelf somewhere and just pretend it didn't exist, which honestly I thought they might do. But how do they release it? They didn't want to release it under the Disney banner. Disney Plus was coming, but again, Disney Plus is for people of all ages. So putting a Marvel property like the New Mutants on there, perhaps that might attract people who want to watch it who shouldn't really be watching it. Who can say? It was all hearsay and rumor. What were they going to do? Were they going to just file it away on a streaming service somewhere, if not Disney Plus, somewhere else? Were they going to release it under the Disney banner or under 20th Century Fox? Were they going to release it as part of the MCU to build on that expanding world like they're going to do X-Men and Deadpool and Fantastic Four and everyone else that has been bought by the Disney merger? And of course, the New Mutants, from what we heard, was originally intended in the first in a series of film about these characters. So were they going to leave it as such to hopefully make more films after this one? Or did they just want this film to be released, done and dusted? It's crazy stuff. It's a lot of baggage for just a simple 90-minute film. But against all odds, in 2020, the year when most films can't make it to the cinema, New Mutants somehow managed to claw its way to the top and release itself to the cinema, to the general public. It's just in cinemas. It is not part of the MCU. It is not part of the X-Men world, really. It's sort of its own thing. There are Easter eggs here and there. If you're familiar with the X-Men comics or the X-Men movies, you'll get sort of a few of the references in here, but it is not required viewing to have seen other X-Men movies to get what's going on in here. And definitely watching this movie, you can tell that while it was shot to be the first in a series of films, there are no intentions to make more films after this, I'm pretty sure. There was a post-credit scene that was supposed to be in this movie that just got removed, because why hint at another movie that's just not coming? Which I can appreciate that. So basically we have our movie. And what do I think of it? It is fine, if not boring and very cliche, which is very disappointing to say, because I want to be fair to this movie because it's been through a lot to get out. But at the end of the day, it's left me feeling To its credit, it is not the jump scare fiesta I thought it was. The movie starts out and it's black screen and this scratchy writing is appearing on screen. It's very horror and you can hear this narration over the top. And it seems to imply very much that this is going to be the It movie of the X-Men or the Marvel world. It's going to be the horror movie that they've been promising all this time. But there's not. There is no moment where there's a big jump scare and the music jumps and you feel your adrenaline race. None of that happens in this movie, which is an absolute blessing because that, as I've said before, I hate it. Even the stuff which you can sort of see was built to be jump scary, you can see the speed of the film is sort of slowed down. There's one scene in particular where a creepy monstery thing turns its head, whips it round to scare the audience, but it's slow and the music doesn't play off when it happens. It does it slowly and then the music sort of goes da-da-da-da-da-da. Not in that triumphant way, I should say, but not in a scary way either. So that's kind of good, except that because I was expecting that sort of movie, the adrenaline that I had at the start of the movie, once it had eased off and I knew very safely I could see that this wasn't going to be the horror movie I thought it was, the adrenaline was replaced with boredom. The movie starts off, you get a little action piece to set up a particular character, and then you're immediately put in the house that I mentioned, and you meet your New Mutant characters, and you sort of learn about everybody and their powers and who they are and what drives them and whatever. But it is scene after scene of people sitting in rooms, looking miserable, talking about their feelings. Now, if it was done in a good way, like I love movies that are just talking movies. If you write great dialogue where people can convey their emotions and you can get a lot out of what's being said, I'm all for it. As I've said before, I love 12 Angry Men, which is a 1957 movie, which is just 12 men sitting around a room arguing with each other. But the dialogue is so on point and so gripping and so interesting that you can watch it transfixed and the hours just fly by. When you're watching 5 people sit around in a circle and they say the most cliche lines that you've ever heard in many previous films before, and the emotion that they're supposed to be emoting does not sound legit. It sounds like it has just been read from a script and they've just got to say it to tell you how you're supposed to feel about these characters, not to prove it to you, but just to tell you. You don't care and you start to wander. Your mind flicks around all sorts of things, which unfortunately is what happened for me here. And while the movie is blessedly short at 90 minutes, it still felt a bit of a slog, a bit of a drag, just trying to get through the point. Now, for positives, as always, I love my positives. I want to say that all the actors in here do a fine job. Nobody in here is bad. And I think that given more, they probably could have had better results. The characters are interesting. I especially really like Cannonball in the film and Maisie Williams' Wolfsbane. But because the film, while there are no intentions to make more after it, because the film obviously wants to build on these characters in future films, you don't get enough information to really learn about these characters and get behind them. Our main character for this particular film is Dani Moonstar, played by Blue Hunt. I believe her comic books character's name is Mirage. She's the eyes of the audience. She's the one that gets introduced to all the characters in the haunted house, and her main power and her driving point and her fears and her insecurities and everything like that. They're the main point of the movie and who we're supposed to follow along with. Apart from her, unless it is a connection with another character and to do with what's going on with her, you don't really learn anything about anybody else, which is frustrating because you want to know why these other people are in the haunted house. But apart from them telling you why they're there, you don't get the emotion of it. They can say, I'm here because I did this. Okay, cool. But then it's never touched on again because they're dealing with what's going on with Dani and her problems. And that is frustrating because the characters present themselves as very interesting if given the chance. That said, they are still very likable, and I enjoyed watching them portray these characters, and I'm really happy for them that they finally have this movie out and their hard work can be shown. To the movie's credit, they do try very hard to establish the emotional vulnerability of these characters, but because of the dialogue and the clichéness of the writing, it doesn't come across as serious as it needs to be. And unfortunately, there are a lot of moments where there are some can't help yourself giggles at the hilarity of the situation in front. There are a couple of moments in this movie where something happening which was supposed to be serious, but it came across as ludicrous or silly or absolutely ridiculous that I couldn't help but laugh. And I hate to laugh in a movie when I'm not supposed to. It makes me feel bad because I know the people in front of me are trying to convey a serious scene. But there's one scene involving Sunspot, who in the film is a character that can catch fire. He is on fire, and the situation calls for something to be done to stop that from happening. And the execution of said stopping fire is so silly and so dumb that I laughed for a good 5 minutes. I was still laughing when the scene had passed on, and that's not good. That's very unfortunate. And there are a few other scenes in here. Our main menacing thing that's threatening our characters in this movie is very silly. You can't take it seriously when it's on screen. And I kept thinking of lines from Jimmy Neutron Boy Genius when I was watching it, as well as The Emperor's New Groove. You'll have to go and watch the movie to understand what I'm talking about when you see this creature. But suffice it to say, it does not have the impact that I know the movie's going for. And that unfortunately does not work in its favor. Overall, to sum up for this movie, it's just kind of a thing that exists. It is not as good as I want it to be, as I really rooted it to be because of its quest to be in the movie theaters. But it's also not as bad as I think a lot of reviewers and internet are making out. It's not the worst X-Men movie ever made. I'm going to say that right now. The worst X-Men movie ever made is the one that came out last year, Dark Phoenix. New Mutants at least tried to do something different, and the execution may not have worked the way they wanted, but they were trying something that they didn't know the outcome. Dark Phoenix took likable characters, took a formula that had worked extremely well in past films, and just collapsed. It just made something absolutely astonishingly bad and incoherent. So at least New Mutants, you tried something different. It made me a little bored, but I didn't hate it, and I didn't hate myself watching it. So there's that. Overall, New Mutants for me gets a 6 out of 10, which is towards a lower marking for me normally. Normally we get 7 and higher. Again, I'm never say I hate movies. This entertained me, maybe not in the way it wanted to, but at the end of the day, it's a movie that came out in 2020, and it's a movie that struggled to get out. And I think if you are looking for a superhero movie that reminds you of the early days of the 2000s with all the different types of movies that were coming out, you'll probably enjoy it. If you are a horror aficionado, it is not what you're looking for, so don't bother. You're not going to get the big scary film that's been promised. But if you're apprehensive because it's a big scary film that people are telling you, it's not. So you can comfortably go and see it and not be scared. I'm scared of a leaf falling off a tree, and I do not find this film scary one bit. So that's the ultimate endorsement for you there. Overall, it's a movie that's available in the cinemas, and if you feel safe to go to the cinema, go and see it. Why not? It's something that's there that wasn't there before. But I think in the long run, this is the cap for the X-Men world. I don't think we'll be getting any more for quite some time. When they do join the MCU, I don't think it's going to be these particular characters, that's for sure. But I really think the X-Men aren't going to be joining the MCU for a good 5 years at the very least. So if you want to cap off your X-Men movie experience, go and see it. It's something that you got to make your own mind up about, I think. Well, that's that. Next week, I believe I'll have another movie review for you. I'm going to be checking out the very notoriously released on Disney Plus Mulan. There's going to be an interesting chat, I believe, next week when I discuss the annoyance of how it's been released and the price gouging and all of that stuff. But it'll be a little tidbit on top of actually reviewing the movie. And I am, at the end of the day, very interested to see how this movie comes out, because the Disney remakes, they're hit or miss. There's a big discussion about whether they're necessary, what makes them good, what makes them bad, whatever. And Mulan is my favorite Disney movie. So to get the live action remake, I'm excited to see how they do it. So tune in next week for that. But until then, I hope you're all doing well. I love and appreciate you as always. If you go and see the New Mutants, enjoy. If you don't want to see it because of what I said, that's totally fine. We're all our own people. Do what you want. But until next time, you've been spliced in later. Adios, muchachos. I'll catch you next time.